Well, good evening, everybody, and good evening to those of our members on 990. I hope you stumbled over the chair and you got a handout when you came in, right? Everybody got one? Very good. Very good.
Is that AI? Is that
Pardon?
Is that AI?
Yeah, the chair now will have the AI. Just an
I got to think about that. I got to get a better joke for that one. What AI? No, that's not AI. That's just me putting it together, typing it out. But since we didn't have anybody there to hand out tonight, I figured if I put the chair there with the things, if you missed it, that's your own fault. You could have had to fumble over to find it. So glad you all got a handout. I thought it would be kind of helpful to have some things for you tonight. Well, welcome to the evening. What's the matter? Can you hear me?
It's different now.
It's a different sound.
Is it? It's right up. Is it too close to my... is it echoey? How about if I do this? Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
A little bit better.
A little better? Just a word of thanks for all of you being here tonight. We're glad you could come in. There's some seats over here, folks, and there's some seats down front. So I figured either that or you'd be out running around shoveling snow tonight, but I'm glad all of you came to be here tonight. We'll see how we do tomorrow morning. Could be interesting out there. I hope be careful when you're driving and watch where you're heading, that's for sure. It's been really a fascinating week. I've been watching the pictures and listening to families, and I went to a memorial service. We had a memorial service here in the building yesterday. We've had about 5 or 6 deaths in this month, or not too unusual, of course. Talking to my daughter tonight, who's a medical director for Unity Point Hospital in the Des Moines area, she says, "Dad, this is the time of the year when we have a number of deaths and people right before Christmas, right after Christmas." It's an interesting time, and I was thinking about Linda, the persons that she was going to introduce couldn't come tonight, and I was thinking, I got to be careful. I don't want to say we're in the midst of coming and going, but we all are, pretty much. That's kind of our agenda in these days. We are coming and going. The question is, how well do we do it? How do we bless others, and how do we be of service along the way? And I just want to remind us all of that. This is the timing for the report comes ahead of the board meeting this month, because the board meeting is always the last Wednesday of the month. And so we'll meet on Wednesday, and the Finance Committee will meet tomorrow. So it just happened the way the Sundays fall. Some months they come ahead of the board meeting, some months they come after. But I think I have enough things to share that will not be a problem. You can see where we're going at the board meeting on this Wednesday. I want to thank everybody. I've been watching the last couple of weeks, watching people around here, helping their neighbors, taking care of the facility. Those of you who helped make it so beautiful for Christmas, and didn't the folks who do that, didn't they do a fine job? And I want to let's thank them. And then now they'll be back at it, helping to clean up and put things away. I hope all of you have the mindset that that's part of our deal. We see something that needs to be picked up or something that left. I go out by and people leave the newspaper on the little table. They leave it in a mess. Don't leave the newspaper in a mess. Pick it up. Make it look nice. People are coming and going all the time. So find your little niche around here. I kind of keep an eye on the stairway back where we live and try to keep those things clean. And maybe you find a spot, too, where you can do good for the help of the community. Roger reminded me, somebody have said to him, "What's the drone? Did you see the drone flying around the last couple weeks?" We've had a drone out there from our engineering company. They're looking at the whole facade or the outside of the building. And so that I'm be anxious to see what that looks like. But remember, Mitch said, make sure that you leave your drapes closed. If you're out there, that drone could come by and catch you in a bad spot. So you have to be careful of the coming and going. So I just wanted to, Roger reminded me to say, what was that? We're looking at our engineering thing. I want to start tonight with the generosity of our members. I've been very impressed and very thankful that in our two big in-gatherings in the month of November and December, the in-gathering for Veep that the Men of York sponsor every year, and then the in-gathering for the staff of 7,500 and all the folks who work here, the generosity of all of our members. It has just been terrific. The Veep thing, Gene, we blew it out of the water, right? And what did we get, 20, how much?
21,500 something.
21,500.
A couple of checks that didn't make it to the bank.
That's right. And they come in late. We had the same thing happen with the member drive. And you'll notice on the sheet, I gave you a sheet on the back of your board report or the board agenda. I put this up on the bulletin board a couple of weeks ago, just so you understand what happened. We had donors from our members. In fact, actually, we had a couple donations come in a little late, and so we were really over $50,000. $50,000 for the staff. That's just simply amazing. I was worried. I told the folks, some of them early in the year, for Veep and for this, because of the just complications out there. The Medicare stuff was coming up. We were going to get raises and those kind of things, plus the dues. I thought, oh man, we're going to have trouble. But when I saw the Veep numbers come in, and then I was confident that we were going to do well with the staff, and we did. Now, make sure you understand what we did here. This is a formula that's worked out, and it's really worked out well. When people work here, they work here at one of three categories. They're full-time people, or they're half-time or part-time people, or they're new, or they're occasional. And so we have those three categories. You see that. And then I broke down the number of participants from each of the two companies that are our management companies. For Ebenezer, who is our general manager and general management company, and for Morrison, our food service, you can see the number of people who work in those slots. I just want to remind everybody, we run, now this year, with a budget of $9.5 million, we run a big business, and we operate like a little church. Just think about that. We all think this is a little church, but this is a big business. We are a great provider of jobs for people in our community. Not only the people who work for one of our two providers, but also I've been watching all the folks who come in and out, who are vendors, are independent vendors who are taking care of people, who are doing services for our people. Just think how much support we give for people in jobs in this community every year. That's really an important perspective. We think of it, this is a place to live, but our community is a job creator, giving people a great place to work with good benefits. We take good care of our staff, and I just want to remind us of that. So we have, you can see where the gifts broke down, and we were able to do a full share for the full-time people, a half share for the half-time staff, and then a nice little gift for those who were new or those who work occasionally. The staff was just blown away with your generosity this year. And they just said to me, and you saw the nice picture, just be sure you tell everybody thank you for all the good things our community has done. I want to thank the people on our task force. You see their names there. We had about I think $2,000 we carried in, and we didn't need to use the carry in. We had enough to give everybody a gift on what we took in, so we'll even have a little seed money again for next year as well. Somebody said, well, how come there's no, we keep it even. So they got nice gifts, and I want to thank you for that. That's very important. Now that it comes to my introduction of two of our presenters tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about our new committee that's been formed. Last summer, we had a think tank group of officers, people on committees, a number of folks come together and say, how can we be be smarter and better in our giving program here at 7500. We have a resident fund, and we have a legacy fund that worked on capital gifts, and a resident fund that works on gifts for the community and programmatic stuff. And so we decided that what we wanted to do, and the board created a brand new committee called the Giving Committee. And we're going to kind of think about it as the Friends of 7500 York. So I want to thank, first of all, Barb Perrin and Jean Heyman. They were the two chairs of the Legacy Committee and the Resident Fund Committee, and they've been working hard to bring those two groups together and to give us a new vision for how we can continue to do good. So I want to give them a hand as they come up, talk a little bit about what they've been up to, and I want them to share some of the good work they've been about.
Thanks. Thank you, Rich.
Well, good evening. Hope you all had a good Christmas. So, as Rich said, I'm the chairman of the Legacy Committee, and Barb is the chairperson of the Residence Committee. And we ended up goes back to a time in April. So we're going to just share a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit of how we got here to this process of changing the committees, and some of the reasons that we're going to do it and how that'll affect the giving. And then Barb is going to talk a little bit about the process anyway, how that's going to happen. So back in April, and maybe some of you were there, the Legacy Committee, the Resident Committee, and also the board and other members of the community were invited to a meeting that was presented by the Ebenezer. They had the chairman or the director of their philanthropy committee come and speak to us, a person by the name of Brendan Brannigan. And he did a presentation on the foundation there, and basically their foundation is one that has ability to have tax-deductible gifts anyway. And so that was one of the prime things, but they also talked about some of the other functions that they had, and one of them was a committee for greatest needs. And so they did their presentation, and as a result of that, it ended up, there was a lot of discussion by particularly our two groups anyway, and also among the board on, do we want to get involved in this? And so we put together a whole list of questions, and we invited Brendan to come back in July. And so he came back and went through our list of questions with us, and as a result of that, a think tank was put together to pursue whether or not the pros and cons of whether we want to get involved with the Ebenezer Foundation. And so that think tank met basically during July and August and came up with a recommendation that we combine the two committees, have one committee, as Rich said, is now the Giving Committee, and then to talk about how we would go about integrating that into our two committees for the giving anyway. And so in September, we started meeting with the Legacy Committee and the Resident Committee.
Resident Fund.
And so at that point, we began to put together a charter for the group and then figure out how we were going to integrate the Giving Committee, the additional of a tax-deductible fund. So the pros and cons, and I just will add just a few things in the discussion that we had. One of the things, the foundation, to give to the foundation, the funds that go through Ebenezer and that are set aside for 7500 York, one of the things that was a part of that foundation was that those gifts could not be used for capital items. They could only be used for expense items. So you couldn't use them for building things and things like that the Legacy Committee was really set up to be a part of. One of the other things was that those funds, when they sit in there at the Ebenezer Foundation, those funds do not draw any interest. So they would be given there, and they would sit there until used, and they could only be used, we would be the only ones, they would be set aside for 7,500 York, but they could only be used for expense type items. And we talked about that, and we said, well, expense items, I mean, there are things around here the committees use and things like that that we would need. Maybe we'd have speakers that come in every month on particular subjects. We could have musical groups. It could be spent for that. Or even if you look at all of our trees, the majority of them that are on this property anyway, and they're ash trees, and ash trees aren't doing too well around the community. So those are going to be replaced. So things like that could be used for those funds that would be given to the Ebenezer Foundation anyway.
I'm going to interject something right here. The whole point of this coming up with Ebenezer Foundation is that the foundation is a 501c3, which we are not. And so for those of you that may be interested at some point in making a tax-deductible contribution to the co-op, that was the whole point of even entertaining the thought of working with the Ebenezer Foundation, because it gave us all an avenue for a tax-deductible donation. But as Gene is saying, I do have to correct you on one thing. It won't pay for the trees. That was a special summer thing that we're doing differently.
Okay. Okay, you're going to do that.
But nevertheless, those funds can be used, thank you, for our life enrichment. I mean, anything that benefits the whole co-op. So nothing changes in terms of committee requests. Right now, this gentleman is building a box, a special box for what will be a new envelope, okay, which we have worked on, and Kara's been wonderful to print a few for us tonight. They're in the back. And so Gene is building a box that we didn't want to commingle any donations with everything else that goes in the blue box, because the blue box takes so many things. And the board had a question about, well, gosh, when someone makes a donation, how are you going to handle it? Who's going to handle it? Well, some things have fallen through the cracks, so we're tightening up on how this works. And there'll be 2 members of our committee that will open the envelope together. So not just one person. There'll be 2 people that open the envelope together. We're creating a spreadsheet so we can track the donations. Then a member of the committee does the thank you to the donor and the recipient so that they know what it's for. Then that check will be given to Jake for deposit. So all Jake has to deal with is putting that money in the bank. And we will make the phone calls, which are many sometimes, to discern, oh gosh, what did you intend this check for? And once in a while, we've had a little faux pas where someone intended the check to celebrate somebody's 90th birthday, but we were given the information it was for a memorial. Well, you don't want to send a thank you note for a memorial if it's a 90th birthday. So that's the tightening up we're talking about, that our committee's willing to take on the responsibility of following up with every donation personally.
So anyway, just that our committees, we met September, October, November. In November, we had sent, or actually in October, we sent a proposal to the board with a charter that we'd put together. And the board reviewed that, I think, in November, but they had many other things that they were talking about, a lot of the budget items. And so instead of passing it, they discussed it, they liked it. In fact, they said that charter may be a model for other charters that they set up. And so we are now at the point anyway where we would have the charter. We've got the people. I can tell you who's on our committee at this point. Between Barb and I, we decided, neither one of us wanted to be the solo chairman, but we decided we'd be co-chairman, and we would agree to do that. And so Barb and I are both co-chairs, and then we have Carol Hagery, Kathy Hauschow, Dorothy Milbrandt, Marv Roloff, Mike Mullinex, and then our board liaison is Ken DeFore.
Yeah.
So we've got that set up, and we're really waiting. I think one of the things that'll come up at the board meeting is the final approval of the charter, and then we should be able to start operating. And so both of us have talked to our committees, the Legacy and the Resident Committee, that probably they've had their last meetings anyway. And so we will move on to the Giving Committee.
Right. So we're excited about it because it does give us an opportunity, if we want to make a tax-deductible donation, that there's a third option now. So you can still make a donation. If you look at the envelope, we've tried to simplify it. You'll have your donor name, the amount, say it's $25. Your address, you can simply put 7500 York, Unit 205, which is me. Your phone number, your email, and you're giving in honor or memory of. So in honor, what I would encourage you to do, if it's for someone's celebratory birthday, you would say, in honor of Marilyn Booty's 91st birthday, okay? Then we know for sure. Or in memory of Jean Egglestead, that type of thing. Then please select your donation designation. This is really key. If it's a non-tax deductible donation, you make your checks payable to 7500 York, just like you would for the Resident Fund Committee or the Legacy Committee. This is where you check for building and grounds capital projects, capital project meaning that's the old term for the Legacy Committee. Capital project would be a tax, something that can be depreciated, an item like a boiler that we all know we need. That would be a very generous donation, by the way. But so it would be something like furniture or maybe outdoor patio things, that type of thing. Things that can be depreciable are what are considered capital items. But community projects and committee would be the Resident Fund Committee, the way you knew it, such as some new equipment that the Resident Fund Committee funded for this room. The lighting in the York room for the artwork that you members have generously been displaying. So that came out of this box because that's a community project, an expense item, okay? It's not a depreciable item, it's an expense item. But then if you make a tax deductible donation, you would issue that check to the Ebenezer Foundation, but you can still put it in the special box that Jean is building. And just remember, it cannot be used for capital projects, which we'll be honest, we were disappointed about that. We wish we could use it for capital projects. The problem is, because it's an Ebenezer Foundation 501c3, if they let us spend it on capital expenditures, like a new boiler or something, because it's in their foundation name, they would own it. Well, we don't want them to own it. So that's, to simplify it for you, I hope, we're going to have time for questions, if you have questions. But those donations can be for things of your choosing. Let's say, I wanted to go toward life enrichment. I don't care what you do with it, but life enrichment. Jean, help me out. What other?
Well, the only other thing I would just say, when not only you write the check to the Ebenezer Foundation, but also : 7500 York.
Yes.
So otherwise,
That's right.
it won't go into our fund.
Right.
So, I mean, I think when we thought about how those gifts could be used, and I think from a tax deductible standpoint, most people, I guess if you're writing $25 or $50 checks for a memorial, a lot of times that's not a consideration. But if you're looking at larger donations, like maybe 50,000 or something like that, it's nice to have a tax deductible gift. And so, right now, a lot of people say, well, with your federal taxes, the general donations, I guess, and things like that, they've set it up, the standard deduction is so large that most people don't do that anymore. But it's still effective on your state. there's still tax deductible, any of the deductions that you have for charitables. So that, I mean, is a good reason why, anyway, why we thought this would be attractive anyway for some of the larger gifts. I mean, the other part of that too was that if you have IRAs, which I think a lot of us do, that you can make an IRA distribution to the Ebenezer Foundation and have that be part of your yearly, remittance, I think, whenever you give donations anyway from your IRA. And so, and many people do that. I mean, I do that. It just lowers your total income anyway from a tax standpoint. So that's a consideration. One of the other things why we considered this, a lot of people are doing that from a charitable distribution.
One of the things that we suggested to the board when we were working as a think tank group is that I did a little research and found out that 5 other co-ops, senior co-ops that Ebenezer is currently managing, participate in the foundation. So I had suggested the board contact 1 or 2 of them and see how it's working for them. Well, the board has proceeded along with us to say, keep going, we want this giving committee. By the way, it will be a standing committee, which will then report to the board. And as Jean said, we'll co-chair it. Carol Hegre has been wonderful. She keeps the best minutes of anybody I've ever seen, and she's offered to be the secretary. And the charter states that we will meet once a month, the 3rd Thursday of the month in the boardroom. And if it's not necessary to meet, we won't meet. But if there are donations or requests from committees, and that's the other part we want to talk about, how do you get funds from the resident fund? And that's why I did the article for the newsletter. If you haven't read it and you haven't tossed your newsletter, I would suggest you look at the article on the resident fund. It explains how you make a donation, where the envelopes are, and what do we do with that money. We currently, in the resident fund, we have 16,000 roughly. In the legacy fund, we have
Somewhere over, I think it's 60,000.
60,000, so 76,000 together.
Yeah.
And so those funds are not commingled, by the way, because the legacy fund is in an investment fund, right?
Right. It's invested
Drawing
as Schwab.
Right.
Yes.
Whereas the 16,000 of the resident fund donations is commingled with our funds as a co-op, not drawing interest, but it's our fund. We're tracking all of it, every penny that comes in, every penny that goes out. And the committee, those of you that are on committees that have requested funds from the resident fund committee, you know how it works, or from the legacy fund, you know how it works. And so now, if we're done talking, this might be a good time to
Okay.
open it up for questions.
Questions. Right.
And we'll walk around with the mic so you can be heard.
Any
Now,
questions?
now's your time to say, what in the world are you talking about, or what did this mean? Do I see any hands up? You really get it? You don't get it? Well, that's honest. Okay, hold on. Pat, I'm going to hand you the mic. Hold on, dear. Hold it close.
How much is in the Ebenezer Fund?
We don't have any donations.
Well, I beg your pardon. There is one donation by our chairperson, Rich. He said, I want to be the first check to give to the Ebenezer Foundation. And so we have a check in there from Rich.
Well, I didn't tell you that because we haven't deposited it yet.
Okay.
But, right. Doesn't count till it's in the bank, right? But yes, thank you to Rich. We have our first deposit in the foundation. But I heard amongst you, you said, no, I don't understand it.
Well, I
So
would just say
please-
also, we have got the charter and everything, but we really haven't started, bringing funds to Ebenezer because we really haven't talked about it. And so Rich knew about it, obviously, and he said, I want to be number 1 on the docket. And so we said, that's great.
So when you say, you shake your head no, please be transparent with us and tell us the question.
I'm wondering why the funds that you said are commingled with our funds, why cannot they draw interest?
Okay, the resident fund. Dave, do you want to answer that as our treasurer? Dave's going to answer that. I'm so glad.
I missed the
The
question.
residence fund does not have its own separate checking account. That money goes into the general checking account, but accounting has an entry that tracks how much is in there. So it's to set up a separate account would cost probably more money than it's worth. So, but it is separated, but in the pool. Does that make sense, Bernice?
Well, it makes sense, but I don't understand why it would cost so much to separate it.
Well, you'd have to set up a separate checking account with Wells Fargo, and guess what banks do when you give them money? They charge you to
Dave?
hold it.
Dave, while you're up, could you explain then the legacy fund?
The legacy fund is separate, that those go into an investment account with Schwab, and they earn interest. And that's quite a bit of money. It's about $64,000 now, so.
Well, and one of the things that really has to do with the Legacy Committee is a subcommittee right now of the Finance Committee. And the Legacy Committee has no input on how that money is spent. That money is, the money and how it's going to be spent is determined by the board. The board makes the decision on capital funds there, and probably the biggest gift that they've done so far has been for all the communications here in this room and getting that fixed up, which 2 years ago went bad. There wasn't money in reserve to fix our communication system, and so the money came out of the Legacy Committee. One other application that they talked about, I think at one time this fall, they were looking at replacing the bus and are getting it maintained, and so they decided they would actually get it repaired.
Right over here first, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering that I was just wondering, we are piggybacking or we are connecting with the Ebenezer Fund for $7,500 for those deductible items. Right. I mean, and the reason is because Ebenezer is a 501c and we are not.
That's correct.
And so we just say to Ebenezer, here's $500,000, keep track of it and let, you know.
No, we keep track of it.
I know, I mean, who does the tracking? Or we just have a verbal agreement with them?
That's a very good question. Did you all hear it? Okay. What Joe asked is, who's keeping track of all this if money goes to the Ebenezer Foundation? We track it and they track it. Did you want to say something about that? Okay.
I'm pointing at these two. This committee tracks it.
Right. We will track it on a spreadsheet along with Jake, who will make the deposit, carry the check over to the corporate office for Ebenezer is just across High 100. And so those deposits are segregated from the different co-ops. Our co-op will have just our own funds. So if someone were to make a sizable donation, say $50,000, and say, hey, put this toward this kind of purchase, or well, it would have to be something that's can't be a capital expenditure, so it has to be something like, I would like to see more music here at 7500 York. So please put this donation toward future music, and then we earmark that. Or you can say, here's simply, I want this tax-deductible donation. Here's $20,000. Put it in the foundation, just so you know. Those funds are always ours, and if this co-op board were to ever decide to go with a different management company, those funds come back to us. They don't get to keep them in the foundation if they are not our management company.
So where is that agreement? I mean, do we just verbally?
No, we signed an agreement to belong to.
We have a written agreement.
We already have a written agreement with.
Yes.
That's right.
That's already been made.
That's right.
Well,
That happened this summer.
with the board.
Yeah, the board made that agreement.
Yes, you
Oh,
will
yes, sure.
definitely get a receipt
I have a question.
and a thank you letter.
Barb,
Yes,
Okay.
Monica.
I don't understand this. Is this similar to the resident fund part of this? Like, because that's what it
Right, this pretend, yes.
okay.
This is good that they're asking these questions. What we should probably do is put in parentheses here, former legacy fund, former resident fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it looks
Because that's what it
familiar.
is.
And so why did this get created? Is it for tax deduction or something?
Yes, to add this tax deductible
Deductible.
option.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That
Thank
was
you.
a board decision. They put the think tank together, and out of that grew Gene and me. And those other folks, at the last Resident Fund Legacy Combined meeting, we asked those members, how many of you would be willing to volunteer to work on the new giving committee? And 7 hands went, well, 5 and you and me. So we have a committee of 7 members on the new giving committee, and we are accountable directly to the board. And so we are in the process of working out all of the steps. I want you to know that your donations have always been protected, whether it's $5 or $500, and they will continue to be so. But I can understand if there's a little hesitation when you think of your money going out to the Ebenezer Foundation, because that's something brand new. But by law, okay, because they are a 501c3, by law, they have to track our monies, just like we're going to be tracking it. And it's not like we just say, here it is, and then we just let it go. And we don't need their permission to withdraw it, but we need their help when we want to spend it on whatever program we want to do. I see a hand up. I'll get the mic to you.
Yeah. Well, we can't
can't be.
We can't be tax deductible. We are not eligible to be tax deductible, no.
We looked at that. We tried, we asked that question.
Yes, yeah, we are not tax deductible material. It won't fly.
We've been talking about the advantage of the tax deductible giving, but I think we should also emphasize the advantage of taking the money out. For example, on music and arts, if we want to have a special artist, there are funds we can tap into, and that's somebody asked why we did it. That's one of the advantages. It gives us extra funding beyond our budget.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that we
Thank
talked
you.
about. It would give us a greater source of funds for special programs like that.
Excuse me. That's the whole point of this, of the resident fund and the legacy fund, and now the tax deductible option, is for things that are not in the budget, that the committees can come to the giving committee and say, we have a request, there's forms out at the desk. I put that in the article in the newsletter. It's outside the office by the mailroom. The form is there. Just for now, pull the form for the resident fund committee or the legacy committee until we get the new form, and we're designing a new brochure for the giving committee once the board signs off on everything at their December 31st meeting. Did I see your hand go up? Okay.
I just have a question about who's going to make the decision about committees' requests. Say you have 3 committees that put in, some committees are more aggressive than others, and who will make the decision which one you'll do?
That's a good, I don't know if you heard the question, but she said, what do we do? Who makes the decision if several committees come to us requesting funds? Well, let me say this. I kept track, and last year, well, the year before, in 2024, we had 36 requests. No, I'm sorry, got that backwards, deposits. Whoa, this moves. I'm going to dance on New Year's Eve with this. We've had 36 deposits to the resident fund in 2024. We had 12 deposits in 2025. We didn't have a lot of requests in 2025. We had more in 2024. The request in 2025 is first come, first serve. We still have $16,000. We bought some new equipment here. We bought the lighting for the art in the York room. So if 3 committees came to us, we are allowed as a committee to authorize anything 1,000 or less. If it's more than 1,000, we have to go to the board. So you might consider, if you have a few things that you want, of doing separate requests. That's just,
Margie, that was a
just a little
consideration.
clue.
Margie said some committees are more savvy and aggressive than others.
Right?
So I think that's how we think about cooperatively. How do we help one another? Think about that. If there's a project your committee wants to do, let's help everybody to have a good shot at this. Now, the more gifts we get in those funds, we can handle most anything.
Right, and the landscape
But you're
committee.
right. Savviness,
Sorry.
aggressiveness is important.
Thank you for that question, Margie. And the landscape committee the year before got quite a chunk because they were assertive and said, can we do this? You know, from, that was,
No.
it was from the resident fund. Yes.
I'll
Did
tell
I
you
see
what,
another hand? Shar, did you have a question? No.
I'll tell you what, you guys, it's about, we
Yeah,
gotta move
Yeah.
we're
on.
running over our
Okay.
time.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was too polite.
So if they have more questions, how do you want them to
Well,
handle it?
Come around here, come and visit us afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing is, that's part of our challenge all along has been just helping people understanding what's there. If you want to do good, we can help you do good. In fact, one of our members, this has nothing to do with any of these three funds, gave a memorial gift to put in the reserves for future capital items. And we made that happen. That's generosity. You don't have to do that, but people have done that. So we'll give you an opportunity. Just what? It's going to take a while to get used to all this kind of stuff. But if you want to be generous, we'll even sit down with you and help you think about that, okay? Make some sense? Very good. So thanks to Gene and Barb, and they're excited. Their committees worked really hard, and we're going to figure out. We were worried in the past these two funds were kind of competing against each other. Well, why don't we have a combined committee that will umbrella all the giving? That's what we're going to be doing. We can help you do most of the things you need and want to do. So, all right. Thank you so much, you guys. And by the way, Ebenezer Foundation, we've applied and received grants totaling for next year's Christmas tea, for some music, and for some trees. They gave us I don't know, what do they give us, Roger, $5,000 to $8,000? Now, the only catch to that is they've given us that out of their program. We need to be able to match that, which is why I gave the first gift to the Ebenezer Foundation. We'll have a matching pool of funds over there so that when the Christmas tea bill comes, we'll have a little money to help match the gifts. That was really nice of them to put that money down on our account. So,
Rich, do you want to emphasize that's separate from everything we just
Yep, that's separate. Well, no, that's exactly what it is. Oh, yes, but we have to match their gift.
Right.
And so we can do that through this account over there. You can and get a tax deduction at the same time. What a deal. All right. You look at the board meeting this week, and you can see by the agenda we've got a number of regular items, but we got some interesting items that will come to us as well. We're going to meet with Victor Jones, who's been our food service consultant. Victor's been doing a number of surveys for us, and one of the surveys he did was to visit with people and find out why they don't use the dining room. And so we're going to hear a report about that. That will be an interesting one. That continues to be a challenge on the whole community, of course, about how do we think about that and what's going to happen down the road. Did you know we had 150 people who came to dinner here on Christmas Day? Can you imagine that? And I heard the food was really good, too. Everybody get there? They do okay? Very good. 150 people, that's pretty amazing. So how do we bring you, we have been able to up the usage this year. It's still going to be a challenge. That's why for a small amount, we've engaged Victor Jones of Victor Jones Consulting, who's been our eyes and ears and knows more about running a restaurant than any of us board members do. So we're going to hear a report from him. That will be an interesting one that will come up. We also have a consent to action that we will affirm from the Membership and Marketing Committee. I want you to take a look at that. It's on page 3 of your handout. Consent to action for minimum income guidelines for the cooperative. You can see the the whereases. But what happens, this comes out of the HUD, Housing and Urban Development. For a long time, 7,500 had a mortgage that was backed by HUD. So we had to follow HUD's rules and regulations. And HUD has an agenda like this. Every year they put out guidelines for how much income people have to have that will allow them to live in the cooperative. Theirs was about 45%. They said you should not spend more than 45 to 50% of your income. The co-op says we're even tighter. You probably shouldn't spend more than 40%. But here's what you see. You can look at the unit numbers. You can look at the for single occupancy or for double occupancy, how much resources a year you have to generate to be able to safely live in that facility or live in the unit that you're assigned to. That's an interesting, and we've adopted those guidelines. And so when people apply for membership, we don't get to snoop in their finances. That's none of the board's business or your business, but it is the management company's business, so that they prove to the management company they have sufficient resources to be able to live here and meet the requirements. We're not under HUD's just under HUD's regulations anymore, but this represents, I believe, about a 40% telling us that you shouldn't spend more than 40% of your annual income on your housing. So you go ahead and figure that out. What are you paying for your rent and your fees? This is going to be a very interesting one over the years. And the question becomes, the longer one lives, resources gets tapped. This is a snapshot once a year. Can we guarantee that? Can we guarantee people don't go bankrupt? Heavens no, we can't guarantee any of that. But when people join in a year, at least they know that there is a minimum income requirement that they have to make sure that's provided. And we've adopted that in an email vote. Now we'll officially ratify it by a vote at the board meeting. That's an interesting thing every year. I get confounded by it in some ways, but I understand in other ways what that's all about. We have to tell people if they're coming here, they better have adequate resources to pay what's going to be needed to pay for their unit year by year. We have an item I wanted to just, the other item on the back was the motion that came from the property committee. By the way, and this is about the boilers, if you want to I'll go to bat for you. If you pay for the boilers, we may even put the nameplate on the boiler for you. We have a no nameplate policy, but I'll tell you, if you do the million and what do we need for the $1.6 million, we'll put your name, well, I hope we'll put your name as a nameplate. The property committee, the finance committee, and the board, the property committee has been carrying the water on this. This has been going on for 2 years. We've been studying. We're struggling with our boilers. They're original equipment, and they're struggling, and they're costing us an arm and a leg to maintain. So we finally got the reserve funding in the right rotation, and the property committee has worked with a consultant, an engineering consultant. They had six bid packages they sent out. They got 3 back. And you could read the whereases. I just want to go through the middle of the page. Whereas the board of directors engaged Encompass to provide professional engineering services, and whereas Encompass evaluated capacity for each steam boiler to satisfy energy loads, boiler efficiency to operate cost effectively, and a modular design to permit introduction of the boilers without having to remove the walls. The original boilers were put in before they made the walls, and they dropped them in with cranes. So we got to get those old ones out of there and put the new ones in there. Thankfully, the new ones are smaller than the original ones, and the original ones will probably have to be cut up to be able to get out of the old boiler room down there. So that will be we will not do that in February. We'll do that in May, probably April and May. This has been costing, in terms of time and in terms of money, way too much, and we've got to be able, we finally just said, we got to bite the bullet and get this done. So you'll notice then, The property committee recommended that the board of directors negotiate a contract. They picked this bidder, Corporate Mechanical, based on their proposal of October 31, cost not to exceed $1,600,000. And the property committee recommended that we add an additional allocation for $100,000 for a contingency. We think we can hopefully make that good use without having to bite into the contingency too much. But we finally did that. We approved that along with the finance committee. We've had about 25 sets of eyes on that, working with that. Members of the finance committee, the board, and the property committee work hand in glove on these big projects. This is what I was wishing we could have got. The Ebenezer would have let us have capital, because I'd like to seen somebody throw $100,000 in for the boilers. You know, I mean, we got people who can do that and be generous about that, but we're not. We have to pay for that out of reserves. So I wanted to, you see that, I want to commend the property committee on how hard they worked to make this project go. And so you'll be watching over the springtime and see as we attack the boilers. Attack the boilers. That's an interesting phrase.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In
Whether
this-
I have the answer or not, that's a horse of another
Oh, I know you
color.
will. I know you will. The boilers are used for heating the building.
Right.
Right. So in the spirit of saving money, I'm thinking that's why the halls are cooler this year.
They heat, that stuff comes from the air exchangers at the top, right, David? Yeah.
So the halls
boilers-
are cooler. But the garage, just so you know, is like 71 degrees. And I'm wondering why it's 71 degrees, and couldn't we keep it at like 65
Well,
degrees?
in fact, we passed some lower settings. They're trying to get it down. For some reason, it keeps warming up.
It
down.
does.
The north garage is, you ever notice that's warmer than the south garage? Oh, yeah, the old garage is chillier.
When I get into my car, it's 84 degrees. I've got to heat it right above it.
Right.
Well, yeah. Now, when I get into my car, it's 55, the temperature. Yeah. You're sitting right under a blower. Yeah.
So, and then I have one more question, and it has to do with the income requirements. And I get that, certainly. What happens, though, for members, like I've been here a little less than 3 years, and my fees have gone up now like 29% over 3 years. So, of course, the required income has gone up proportionately.
Sure.
What happens to any of our members that may no longer qualify on paper,
Well, this only is for the folks who are qualifying for this year moving in.
moving in?
So that doesn't apply, it doesn't look back to years before.
Right.
But that's the risk we all take coming in here.
Right.
We all take that risk that we come here and we don't know what's going to happen and what we're going to find, you know. So this does not apply back and throw people off the dole, you know. So,
No, my worry is can they afford
yes. But that was a good question, but that's very helpful to see. That only applies to the people who are applying this year. We're facing the same issue. I watched the City Council of Edina the other night when they passed the almost 10% budget increase for property taxes. We're going to feel that, of course, which is why we have it in the budget. I heard Carolyn Jackson say, you know, Edina built in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s a great whole system of a wonderful community. And she said, the problem is it's wearing out and we're going to have to start over, and we're in the interim time of going back and repairing and rebuilding. And I thought, that's 7500's story. The exact same story that the city of Edina is facing as it starts to figure out where, and people, of course, we're all worried about that. But it's the same issue. Stuff that was done 40, 50 years ago is now, we're in the midst of the transition. And I applaud our management that's saying, if we don't attend to that very distinctly and very heavily and very intensely, we're going to get really caught in the lurch. And so I just want you to know that. We're hearing that. We hear you folks tell us, we have to pay the fees too. We don't get out. We pay. We're assessing ourselves when we're voting on this kind of stuff. So, but we're feeling it. We're feeling the same thing the city of Edina is going through. Welcome to 2025 and 26. It's going to be a challenge for all of us. Just know that. All right, where am I at here? An important thing that applies to everybody: garage etiquette. Garage etiquette. Linda, are you ready to come and speak?
I am. Just a gentle reminder about garage etiquette. Something happened to me last week that I found a little disturbing. I pulled into the south garage. I stopped at the orange sign to wait for the door to go down. However, someone came in right behind me, so that was 2 cars per 1 cycle, and they honked at me because I was waiting for the door to go down. So I just kind of waved my hands, and they honked at me again.
They wanted to get your attention.
I should have gotten out of my car to find out who this person was, but I didn't do that. I just waited. And then they crept up. I thought they were going to tap my bumper. They did not, but it was just reminded me that maybe it's something we all need to remember. We wait for the door to go down. It's our security measure. And it's usually 1 car per cycle, right? Thank you.
Very good. By the way, just a reminder, for those of you who are new and those of you who don't pay attention, who has the right of way in leaving the building from the garage? The people leaving the building going out have the right of way. So if somebody, you're coming in on the driveway and you see the door going up, stop, maybe back up a little, and let that person get out of the garage before you come through. Now, use your bean. Sometimes somebody comes so late that it makes sense for that person coming in. Use etiquette when you think about that. Normally, the person leaving the garage has the right of way. It's easy to wait when there's nobody behind you. But I get worried. I pull up and I leave that west garage and I pull up to the sidewalk and I wait there until that door starts to almost go halfway down or more, and then I pull out. But if somebody's behind me, I keep thinking, oh, I like Linda. Now, nobody's beeped at me yet, because I kind of stick my nose up and check around and see who's driving the car. So it's important you don't beep at your neighbor. It's important you don't drive fast in the garage. Yeah. For crying out loud, people, it says, what does it say, 5 or 6 miles an hour? Yep. No more than 8. You can't go fast down there. I see people racing down there. Knock it off. That is not healthy or safe for everybody. That's for sure. The other thing I see, just a little friendly reminder. I've been walking inside the last week or so. So while I'm down there, it's kind of boring when I'm walking, getting my steps in. So last night I took my pen and pencil. I noticed we have about 4 automobiles who do not have current tabs on their license. Now we have a few folks who have December, and they're still green. If you're in December and you're still green, what do you got? 3 days to get them on? But there's some that were due back in July so it's a requirement that you have updated license plates. So make sure you get that done. That's really important to be able to have that finished. Mitch reminded us, don't neglect messages from the office that come by email. He's seen people, some might turn their email off, and then they say, well, I don't know what's going on. What do I know? Well, read. Read the emails if you can. If you can't, have your neighbor help you. Check it out. Make sure you know what's going on. I just remind us about that. The other thing I want to say is what we heard at the managers' meeting. The staff cannot do your personal computer, your personal phone, and your TV set. If you have a personal problem, you got to call Nice Guy Technology or somebody else or whatever. Now, we tried here a few months ago. We said we've got savvy people in our community who could help you with your technology. And there was a little group that got started, but here's what happened. Somebody tried to help somebody, and they apparently didn't do it right, or they got confused, or it never happened, or they tried, and this person got angry at people, and they said, well, I'm not going to help them. People are going to get angry at me. Why in the heck am I going to help you if you're going to be angry? That's a problem for volunteers helping one another. So if you've got a bad problem with your technology, that is not our office people's job. That is your job to make sure you get that covered and get that fixed by somebody who can help you. Get your kids in here, get somebody from the technology people that come on Mondays, and help you with that. So just a reminder about that. Nominating committee. Gene, are you the chair this year coming up? Gene and I were talking, the nominating committee doesn't meet now until after first of the year. And Gene said, Rich, somebody said to her, we've got an election coming up for the board of directors. And by the way, the board of directors election may be the most important thing the members do, is to elect people to the board. And she said, well, this person said, well, there's 3 incumbents and there's 3 positions. Why do we even have to have an election? And I thought to myself, okay, that in some ways that does make sense. But no, it doesn't make sense at all. We have an election because we're required to by our bylaws. And just because incumbents may or may not run doesn't mean a bunch of other people can't be in the mix to run for the board. The members will pick the best 3 candidates. So just because we have 3 incumbents who are, that doesn't mean that they'll automatically be reelected. We want you to think about your neighbors and your friends and say, who's got the skill and the talent to be a good board member, and encourage them. We want to have an election. So we'd never postpone or stop an election. That can't be, but we'll see how many people then will put their name forward. They'll be vetted by the nominating committee. If we find out you're an axe murderer, we will not let you run, But we'll vet you and we'll check you out, and we want people to offer themselves, and if they do a good job, we'd appreciate you being on that list. Now, that's up to our 3 incumbents. We don't even know if they're going to run again for a second term. That's up to them. They need to decide that, and then whoever else is willing to step forward. There will be an election coming up at the annual meeting or just before the annual meeting at the end of April, first part of May. So just a reminder about that. What happens then is we start from scratch every year. After the annual meeting, the 9 people who are elected, or the 3 new ones plus the 6 carryovers, will form the officers for the year. I have told my colleagues on the board, after 3 years, I will not offer myself for president this year. I will cycle off. I got 1 more year on the board. I will be a civilian at the bottom of the line. And someone else will be elected to the presidency, and that group will decide what they're going to do and who's going to be elected. We'll figure out who the best person is, who's got the best skill for the time. So that will be coming up. But I just want to make sure people understand there will be an election. If you have somebody in mind that could do a good job and has got skills and has got talent, make sure you encourage them to be able to do that. All right. It's after 8. We've had any questions or comments that I can just tackle for a second?
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on. Statue of Liberty. Hold on.
Oh, I got a big voice. Well, that's a good question. Yeah, but 990 can't hear you.
Is Ebenezer going to charge us for handling the money?
Not now. I wouldn't doubt down the road. I think one of the things they found that it's costly for them to manage. There'll probably be a fee sooner or later. Most endowments do that. Most of those companies have that.
But we already have our agreement with them.
Yes, we do. Well, but they may change the agreement for all the co-ops at the same time. So, but even at that, it's a good deal for us. It allows people to make tax-deductible gifts that we couldn't do here because we can't do that. Yep.
Is there any way that you can let the residents know, particularly the new ones, who is not eligible to be on the board because we've already served our years?
You know, I wouldn't even know who's ineligible. I don't know that. You'll have to let the nominating committee know that.
Every year, people call me and say, why don't you on the
How
board?
come you're not on the board? She's already put in her 6 years, right? No, not if you get, no, you can't. You get 6 years and that's it. So that's a good question. I wouldn't have the foggiest who served for 6 years. How many of you have served on the board in the past here? Sure. Well, in this place, how many of you are done your 6 years and have done? Char's the only one? Look at that. How interesting is that? So the rest of you are eligible.
I want to know if Ebenezer changes their policy where they charge us. Can we change our policy, they pay interest too?
Well, if they change, then we have to decide, is it worth using it or not, you know?
No, but you said down the road they might charge us?
Well, they might have a small fee to handle each gift or something like that. They can charge a % or something like that of the gift.
But they still wouldn't pay interest.
Well, no, they won't pay interest on that, and why should they? You know, they're handling money for us and giving us the tax deduction. They have to be very careful, by the way, or the IRS will be after them. They have to watch it like a hawk. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Question about the board. Has the board ever put out some kind of publication that says, if you're interested in running for the board, here's the kind of skills we would hope you would have?
The nominating committee has all those nice materials, and that will go out to everybody's box and every floor. You'll get a wonderful packet from that great committee back there. Ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.